What up, my St. Louis City fam? It's your girl Kelly here to give you the rundown on what happened in St. Louis City government this week, and here's what you need to know. So the topic of discussion during the Public Safety Committee meeting was the unhoused population. There was a bill introduced and discussed during the meeting that, if passed, it would prohibit the use of tents in public rights of way or a manner that blocks the use or maintenance of a public right of way. So, what is a public right of way, you ask? So, it is defined as any portion of a street, alley, sidewalk, pedestrian, or bicycle path, easement, body of water, drainage work such as the River de Peur, and any other property that is owned, controlled, or maintained by the city of St. Louis. So, damn, all right. Alderman Oldenburg, you really made sure you define that mug real well to cover all your bases. So why was this bill written? Listen to Alderman Oldenburg, who sponsored the bill, as he provides his reason why this piece of legislation is needed.
This is a safety issue, but this is also a homelessness issue. But my belief is when you take a hierarchy of needs approach, we must first ensure citizens' safety and life, wherever they lay their heads each night. Then after we have safety, I think we can begin to address the many pathways that lead to an unhoused situation. I'm going to say that again. This is about safety. And I worry that the safety of folks who are in tents or other structures in the city's public right of way, that not only if the city in its responsibility and obligation to maintain those areas or others that operate in the right of way, that creates an incredibly dangerous situation. A vehicle, a piece of construction equipment, a trash truck, if there's a tent in an alley, an emergency response vehicle that we know has to make the shortest point in a straight line to get to an emergency situation. They won't be able to maneuver in time if I think we see a cluster of tents and structures in the city's public right of way or very close to roadways.
So after he did his spiel, the public testified, and there were quite a few folks that came out to testify. And literally, y'all, all of these people testified against the bill. Not one of them was in favor of this mug. So after they provide their comments, then the committee members had their time to express their thoughts on it as well. Check out this exchange between Alderman Boyd and Alderwoman Ingracia as they discuss this matter.
Have you found a least common denominator as to why we have so many people unhoused?
It's a complex question. Would it be okay if I answer the question with respect to people choosing to live outside?
Sure.
Okay, I think the main reason that we have individuals living outside is that we don't have the right kind of beds for everyone. The shelter space that we currently have available is extremely limited and also typically has a lot of rules that adults just don't want to follow. I certainly would not want to follow them myself. People have to be inside the shelter by a certain time. Sometimes they're not allowed to go outside for a cigarette break unless they're approved or there's a certain time that's set for them to do that. They're not allowed to drink alcohol. If maybe they got high before they came in and they smell like marijuana, they're going to be told that they are not allowed in that shelter space. So we need to have low barrier and no barrier shelter space, and that's just for temporary space. We need to do the same for permanent supportive housing. We simply do not have enough actual housing for individuals to move into that is not just emergency shelter space. And I know that's something that the city is working on, but we just have not gotten there yet. And so when these individuals choose typically to live in community so that they have a support network, just like you do with your family or within your neighborhood, and an ability for, looking out for one another and protection. That's why these communities come together.
So after that, Alderman Boyd, he provided his 2 cents on how he felt about it, and he also provided his recommendations.
With all the social issues that we deal with in our community, other mental health issues, the homeless and the unhoused population issue it's almost like it's just too much. It's just like, we're going to bust out at the seams in our mind about just being frustrated about how we can really deal with this. And again, this is a mayoral issue. This is an issue where people campaign for mayor to say, I'm going to fix this problem. This is not a aldermanic problem, but we as aldermen, we have a responsibility to our constituents that says they don't want to see this. And we must advocate for them. And here's my recommendation, because I'll tell you, I'm going to vote to get this out of committee, and I welcome the opportunity to have a more fierce debate on the floor about this. But I have a couple of recommendations. Tower Grove Park is kind of a private park, and they raise their own funds and they kind of do what they want to do. I would recommend that we move the encampment to Tower Grove Park, and that there be a peaceful place. It has restrooms out there. It has shade. It has, grass for, the tents. I would recommend Tower Grove Park. I would also like to recommend Lafayette Square Park. It's a great neighborhood. They won't have to deal with drug dealers preying on them like they might in communities that I live in and other communities on the south side that are distressed, that we have these drug dealers preying upon the homeless, because that's a big problem. Some of them are drug addicted, and you have drug dealers that are preying upon them. So my recommendation, if this doesn't pass on the floor, because I really think we need to have an enriched debate on the floor about this as a whole, and that we all as a whole, as a body, should weigh in on this. And if we as a body can come together, I'm telling you, I just think the best places in the city of St. Louis to do encampments in a place that has amenities to support our unhoused would be Lafayette Square and Tower Grove Park.
So after all of that, Alderwoman Davis, she wanted the people to know, look, y'all, when it comes to supporting the needs of the unhoused, the Board of Aldermen, we done our job. She said, we appropriate coins. We appropriate them dollars. Now, if them dollars ain't spent, that ain't on the Board of Aldermen. So she just wanted people to know that as far as supporting the needs of the unhoused, the Board of Aldermen, they doing their job. And other members of the Public Safety Committee, then they weighed in on the topic, expressing their thoughts, with most folks in support of the bill. Then Alderwoman Rice, who is not a member of the Public Safety Committee, she was given time to express her thoughts. And this is what she had to say.
I appreciate that you have the votes for this today, but I think that committee is where this discussion needs to happen. This discussion involves multiple city departments, none of which are here to speak for themselves. I don't know who was invited to come speak today. I don't know, the timeline of when those were invited. And so I'm not trying to speak bad faith to this in any way, shape, or form. But I think that this discussion should be continued in committee because we have, 80% of the money that we have allocated through the ARPA funds is either under contract or is being expended. I'm on a weekly call with service providers and with city departments and with county departments talking about how much money we are getting out the door. We are getting rental assistance out the door. We are helping families. We are doing eviction mediation. Our folks have been working hard to try to solve these problems. And so to continue to insinuate that none of this money is being spent is just frankly false. And so I don't know where that narrative is coming from, but it is not true. This money is moving, and we have a robust and really complicated contract process that sometimes gets in the way of the speediness that we want to get these things out the door, but they are moving. And I will say that a vast number of these people have probably contributed to the tax rolls at one point or another in their lives and are currently paying taxes if they are employed, which a lot of them are. And part of the reason that shelter space is not always viable for them is because they have jobs, because there are time limits on when they have to get into the shelter and when they have to leave again. And that doesn't work with everyone's jobs. I had a constituent here in the 8th Ward who contacted me, who was working in the restaurant industry and couldn't get into a shelter because their shift ended after the shelter doors closed, right? So we have people who have all sorts of different needs. We have a need for safe use sites, and safe use sites can help get people access to clean drugs where they can use in a safe and supervised location. And that has the potential to build that relationship to move people towards rehabilitation and remove their dependence on drugs in the first place. We have all of these tools and we need to continue to work together to figure out how to solve those problems. But passing a bill out of committee without the robust discussion with the departments that are involved in public, let's figure out, where are our social workers? I know that the health department and human services has acquired more, but they have hired more outreach workers. They are moving through that process. We have tools on the table, and we're speculating. We're saying this department told me this department told me this. And I don't mean speculating in that we're telling falsehoods, but it would be great to have them here to speak for themselves, right? Is the enforcement mechanism the police? What do the police actually have the tools to be able to come and respond to these situations? We know that the most humane way to move folks who are in tents is to help store belongings as well, and that is not made a provision in this bill. Colleagues, I understand this is a huge situation, and homelessness is something that every city in America is dealing with because we have a national shortage of affordable housing, and it is only getting worse. The income gaps are only getting worse, and people are more and more vulnerable every day. So by us saying no to public property, to the citizen-owned, taxpayer-owned property, we're saying not in my backyard, and we're dispersing people into more and more dangerous situations. If we don't have the shelter beds, or if we're telling them that they have to go and hide from us, then that means they're hiding from service providers. We're disrupting their care. We're disrupting the relationships that could lead to actually getting them back into housing. So the best practices in this entire arena of places that have been successful at moving people into housing is not criminalizing their existence or not preventing them from being on public property. We have to do the work of making sure that there are places for them to go first, and not just telling them that they have to move. Thanks for the time.
So what was the final verdict? Y'all, the bill was passed out of the committee with a do pass recommendation, and it will head to the full Board of Aldermen for their consideration for final passage. So that's all I have for y'all this week. Please stay safe out there, and you will see me soon. Peace.